That aspect of architecture is something that architectural education, I think, often maneuvers between, on one hand, and that comes back to the discussion that we had about Delft, maneuvers between, okay, is this just a sort of like professional education? So is it at the end of the day, you're an architect, you have your diploma and your skill set is in order? Or is this also very much about developing a certain attitude? Or is it more about thinking? And is architecture a medium? And I think that, but now I'm talking about the Netherlands, but I'm not fully aware about what's happening everywhere, but I think in the Netherlands there is a tendency towards the first, towards sort of like kind of professional education. And I really like to think about architectural education as a sort of a very critical, research-driven environment in which you develop an attitude, because also this professional education, of course you need to learn to understand and to think and to understand what are certain mechanisms, but a lot of professional education also comes within profession, right? So I think it's very rare that a student of architecture finishes his education and then suddenly is able to do everything that you need to be doing in practice. And it's the same with how doctors are educated, So I think it's a bit of a waste of time to sort of like try to shape the perfect craftsman, and that energy can better be invested in developing, I think, a critical attitude for architects.
It's strange that you're saying that in the Netherlands there's a tendency to limit architecture to technology of architectural production, sort of, because I don't know. It sounds a contradiction with the well-known perception of Dutch as a design nation.
But this is really a change, a recent change. I think in the 90s and also when I studied, and that's also why some of this critique that led to, we need to quantify, we need to justify what we are doing here in terms of methodology. No, that was really, I think, a very experimental environment, and also in which practice and education sort of like, there was a kind of an osmosis between both. And it was obviously there was also a larger infrastructure around it. So architecture competitions for young architects, like Europan, for example. Sort of you graduate, and then there was this competition for best graduation project, and then in the same infrastructure, like you could participate in Europan, and then there was a prize for young architects, and then often those projects were also built, and then there was the Prix de Rome. So there was this whole infrastructure for young architects in which, and also I think housing corporation played an important role in giving young architects a chance to build something. And of course, once you realize your first building, you have something that you can show to other clients, and that's how you can build a practice. But this first one, that's always the difficult one. So that infrastructure was there. Then we had the Dutch Architecture Institute, which was organizing this exhibition. We had the Berlage Institute, which was sort of like a postdoc type of education. So there was a very, I think, rich environment for the thinking and experimentation with architecture. And that has significantly changed. So housing corporations, they are restricted. We spoke about that during dinner yesterday. The Dutch Architecture Institute is not there anymore, so it's a sort of a cross-disciplinary institute. Good intentions, but the focus on architecture is a bit blurred. The Berlage Institute no longer exists independently, but is part of Delft, and is in fact like a relatively small part of Delft. Europan is there, but I think, so for example, we as an office, we participated in Europan 9 one side, and then in Europan 10 we participated 10 times, so we did 10 European projects in 10 weeks, one project every week. We did win one project in Tallinn, in Estonia, 2 honorable mentions, also nothing built, and still sort of like European as a sort of guarantee to build something. That kind of quality of the competition is also a bit gone. So that landscape has changed significantly under political pressure, and that also makes the whole architectural landscape in the Netherlands really different than it used to be.
Okay. Well, anything that is inspiring?
I think what you should look at if you're interested in architectural education is this project by Beatrice Colomina, Radical Pedagogy.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's, I think, one of the best projects about architectural education that I know of. So that's one thing that I really wanted to share. But you are aware of that, so because I think that's super. And then there is, I know because my wife is teaching in the University of Amsterdam, and there is a conference on critical pedagogies also in Amsterdam this summer. That also might be of interest to you. But if you want to, I can send the details.
Yes, that would be very nice. Yeah. Is it a critical pedagogies that is in historical sense? I mean, in the way in Italy and
no. It's more contemporary. Yeah, and sort of like practices of education and what education can be.
No, it's very interesting.
Yeah. No, but I think that in education, I mean, you spoke about let's say Silicon Valley or this kind of companies. For me, I think those spaces are very much about blurring the distinction between work and leisure. And in that sense also colonizing all of your time. And that in that sense also colonizing all the time of the worker. Did you read The Circle, Dave Eggers' book?
No.
It's interesting. It's a good book. But that sort of also describes that kind of condition from a sort of like in the form of a novel. But I think it's very much capturing what this sort of like being, I mean, also having your personal life as part of work. So it doesn't look like work, but at the same time everything becomes work.
Yeah, for picnics, leisure time together.
Yeah. So that's, I think that's one element there, and with that comes also this kind of concept of sort of permanent education. So the fact that I think, in a way, what used to be the case is that sort of you finalize education, you're ready for the labor market, so to say, and then you work, you know. And now, in a way, there is this constant update, as if you're like a sort of like software program that every 3 or 4 years needed to be updated to a higher version to be sort of still efficient and effective and fitting on the hardware of the company.
Sometimes it's a sort of prolonged youth and delayed responsibility.
No, that's also part of it, but it also makes you, in that sense, dependent, as you are when you're young, to a certain extent. So you're also, there's a dependency on family or parents or being raised.
Actually, it's we had a discussion on permanent education or lifelong education for architects in the office of chief architect in Moscow last year, because they have a conference on education every September, and I was invited into sort of a team of discussing group preparing the different sections of the conference. I was invited to lifelong education, and we talked about how lifelong, at least, I mean, it's not. I don't think it's just in Russia that permanent education for architects is something that is not institutionalized because architects believe that they study all the time through projects.
But
Yeah, they don't have to go to some place to learn something once they start practicing, no?